Colonel Gaddafi arrived to address Parliament driving himself in his golf buggy. Ever the showman, he seemed delighted to see the waiting journalists who've been invited into Libya on his orders. After 41 years in power, his country is in crisis. What better place to make his keynote speech to the people?
This was a scheduled appearance before Parliament. Whatever is going on in the rest of Libya, Colonel Gaddafi is sending a strong message to the world. In Tripoli, he is still in control.
But it was a more conciliatory Colonel Gaddafi who spoke to the audience of policemen, politicians and regime loyalists, promising change. He even apologised for the deaths of soldiers and civilians. We would never mean to kill our people, he said, reminding them of his self-imposed role of father of the nation. After 2.5 hours, he had finished, and then it was back to his golf buggy.
Colonel Gaddafi, is your army deserting you? Is your army deserting you? Do you believe?
I forgot your language.
Is your army deserting you?
He left having offered his countrymen a choice: unite and resolve their problems or face foreign military intervention. Libya's people may not see it that way.
Ronald Reagan once called him the mad dog of the Middle East. But today, Colonel Gaddafi was back on the world stage, his rehabilitation complete. The world's most powerful, lining up alongside a man who armed the IRA, once regarded as global terrorism's biggest financier, long before Al-Qaeda had even been heard of. Over dinner last night, the camera caught this wary encounter with America's president, though they eventually shook hands. Washington once bombed Tripoli, and Gaddafi used to act and dress like a tin pot dictator. But now he's given up his weapons of mass destruction, he's the Sultan of Cool. Protected by female guards, he thinks less likely to kill him, though the Keith Richards of elder statesmen did so much bad stuff in his youth that nothing seems to ruffle him much anymore. This was Gordon Brown's first brush with the brotherly leader, who is sleeping in his own tent. Libya admits its diplomats were involved in the killing of policewoman Yvonne Fletcher in 1984, but Mr. Brown wants witnesses for an inquiry. And the Libyans want the Lockerbie bomber, who is ill, returned. But though 270 people were murdered over Scotland, Brown wants Iran to follow Libya to turn back the clock.
But it's important to recognise that if some countries who might have been able to become nuclear weapon states have been prepared to renounce them, like Libya, and I applaud that decision of Colonel Gaddafi, then it is possible for other states to be part of the international community and accepted as part of the international community and not be isolated.
شنو عاد ما في واحد تقعد هيك تلعب هيك ماشي ماشي هلا ولا هاي الكورة صبي صبي ضربيه انا يا عبد السلام صبي هاي طريقتي في اللعب ترقد في الملعب هلا هلا هاي طريقة جديدة جتكم هالبطلة يا ولد إلا هنا جتكم البطلة هنا هاي هاي ردي مش بيديك برجليك مش بيديك يلا بسرعة راهو ناخذوها منك يعني. هيا.
أخذها.
العب العب مضبوط العب. فجر بعيد لا تمنع حتى تصوتونا معناها الدور مقدمة هذه لا لا والله الا بيبي بعدي جاتك احنا عابين عليك شد المرمى والكرة تمر من حداك ها؟ نجد الكرة يا سلام صح هنا
S'il vous plaît, on peut avoir une prise de main. On fait une photo, l'Akh Muammar.
أنا يعني يمكنني الرد بقوة إن قبل لا تتكلموا عن حقوق الإنسان في بلدان أخرى خلينا نتأكدوا من الإنسان في بلدانكم عنده حقوق ولا ما عندهاش، الإنسان الأفريقي المهاجر.
From early morning, we were told Colonel Gaddafi would give a press conference, and as we were driven through the streets of Tripoli, we believed we were heading for the Colonel's palace. But in the center of town, we stopped, and there, almost strolling along the main street, was Colonel Gaddafi. It was particularly unexpected, since only yesterday there had been an attempt on his life. And this was clearly a deliberate move to show the world he was not only still alive, but quite safe in the streets of the city. And it did give us the first opportunity to question him directly about the events in St. James's Square.
Colonel, many eyewitnesses saw shots fired from the first floor window of your People's Bureau. Traces of burns were found on the floor, cartridges were found, and the policewoman was shot in the back.
Anyhow, you can go to the court and say your...
Do you deny that your men were responsible for it?
What?
Do you deny your men were responsible?
No, our people there are innocent people.
Colonel, have you ever encouraged your men to kill your opponents overseas?
The Libyan people will follow these terrorists everywhere, and they have the right to eliminate them.
The leaders of the Western world have called you a terrorist, Colonel Gaddafi.
Your government is a terrorist government. Reagan is the biggest terrorist in the world. You are far from the civilization. We are a nation of civilization.
The official reason for the walkabout was to open a new clothes store, and the irony was not lost on him that some of the clothes had been imported from Britain.
I think Britain decided to export terrorism instead of these goods.
And if he wanted to show that the people still supported him, those outside obliged as he emerged from the shop onto the main street.
Nobody here can remember Colonel Gaddafi putting himself on such public display and right in front of the television cameras. This is clearly a story that the Libyans wanted told. John Souchet, News at 10 in Tripoli.
Far away, on a cold metal floor, the man who once commanded mass rallies lay dead. Muammar Gaddafi, ruler for 42 years, tied up in a blanket.